Shabbat shalom, everyone. Great to sing with you. Thanks for hanging in there on some of the new stuff. Just testing it out. We're not going to take away the old stuff. So, as someone who's still a relatively new congregational rabbi, I'm finding that one of the occupational hazards of the job is that with all the handshaking and the close talking, I am maybe a little bit more vulnerable to sickness than your average hermit. I first discovered this when I became ill just after leading the community on Yom Kippur, and I discovered it again to a much smaller extent this week when I caught a little cold. Now, I already became concerned a little bit last Shabbat when Rabbi Hudson introduced the Mishaberach prayer for healing by saying, there's a lot of stuff going around right now, so we're praying for everyone's health. At that moment, I heard the voice of my bubby in Zeta of blessed memory saying, don't tempt the faith. And indeed, ironically, pretty much immediately after last Shabbat ended, I started to feel a little tickle in my throat that I've been fighting all week, mostly successfully. So, Rabbi, of course, I don't blame you, but what's the fun of Judaism without just a little bit of guilt? Now, while we may not often think about it, for most of human history, people did not understand what caused illness. In religious circles, they often imagine illness to be the result of being guilty of a crime or sin. Doctors had little clue exactly what caused people to become sick, nor did they even have the slightest idea of what might cure such an illness. For much of medical history, bloodletting was thought to be the most effective treatment. Needless to say, this was not at all an effective cure for someone battling illness. Even today, there really is no cure for the common cold. Chicken soup. Someone disagrees. Okay, fair enough, that's true. It definitely helps. We know how to treat the symptoms with chicken soup. Some remedies that might help in certain circumstances, but mostly the main cure for such mild ailments is a combination of rest, water, and time. When it was discovered that there were, in fact, organisms so small that they were undetectable to the human eye, the idea was initially thought ridiculous, almost superstitious. And yet today we know that microorganisms do indeed cause these infections. And while small, it can wreak havoc on our routines, cause sleepless nights, inhibit our breath, and leave a person battling for sometimes weeks or months to find relief. And beyond the individual impact, we know from history and our not-so-recent past or really very recent past, I should say, that the smallest virus can bring the world to a standstill for years, holding back all our great and lofty plans that we have as individuals in our society. And in our Parshat this week, Vayera, we similarly find that something incredibly small makes a massive impact. And when we imagine the signs and wonders of the Exodus story, we usually think of them as epic in scale, like darkness all over Egypt, fiery hail, death of the firstborn. But in our Parsha, as the plagues begin, God acts against Egypt in ways both monumental and minuscule. It begins with blood that fills the Nile and the drinking water of every Egyptian. While an attack on the water supply of their oppressors is still quite serious, Pharaoh at this point is unshaken, in part because his sorcerers also manage to turn the water into blood with their spells. Next, the Egyptians get frogs. Now, why such a bizarre vehicle for a plague? One possibility, according to biblical scholars, is that Heket, the goddess of life and fertility, is represented by a frog in Egyptian art and iconography. Thus, while Pharaoh asks for the frogs to simply be removed to the Nile from whence they came, The scholar Gary A. Rensburg notes that the end result is not only the death of the frogs, but the piles of rotting frog corpses, so that the land stank. Once symbols of the goddess of life, the frogs now embody the stench of death. Ooh, that's intense. Yet even with this widespread epic plague where millions of creatures are brought forth as if from nothing, the sorcerers of Pharaoh somehow find a way to recreate the miracle yet again. But when we arrive at the third plague, something changes. God causes kinim, or lice, to come forth from the ground and spread onto human and animal alike. And not only that, but the Torah states that all that appeared to be dust in Egypt actually was lice. Ugh. Don't love that image. So far, the plagues have been gross. They have mostly remained an external annoyance. Now a plague has started to cover the bodies of Egyptians. But it is not just the disgust that signals a shift in the power of the plague. It's in this most minuscule of plagues that the sorcerers are, for the first time, unable to recreate God's wonders. In the face of this unique, microscopic plague, they finally concede. Etzba Elohim hi. This is the finger of God. Now the language that they use is interesting. It doesn't say Yad Elohim hu. This is the hand of God, but rather just the finger of God. In many other places in our narrative, the hand of God is the metaphor of choice to express God carrying out these powerful wonders. God tells Moshe at the start, he knows that the king of Egypt will not let you go, if not by a mighty hand. Later, after the Israelites escape Egypt, God commands them to tell their future generations that God redeemed the people Israel with a strong hand. So why do the magicians speak of the finger in this instance? My thought is that a finger is a more appropriate metaphor to speak of the power behind such a microscopic plague. What it says to me is that the magicians finally recognize the limits of their craft when forced to deal with something on so minute a scale. Only God's metaphorical finger is delicate enough to do such work. This is the finger of God, is the acknowledgement of lesser craftsmen seeing the fine detail of the work before them, done by a master who's out of their league. This admission of the sorcerers hints at a deeper philosophy of the divine and what it means to acknowledge the wonders that can only stem from the infinite mystery that is God. To me, it teaches us that God is in the little details. God's presence is revealed in the microscopic goings-on of the universe. The existence of such small organisms in all their detail fills us with awe and wonder. Only in the last few generations have scientists discovered mind-blowingly tiny atoms, protons, neutrons, electrons, quarks, and gluons that form the building blocks of all matter in the universe, including us. If they had not been discovered through scientific technology, no one would ever have imagined that such things exist, no less work in so complex a way. The wonder of God's creation calls out to us in these discoveries, in contemplating the impossibly small and in realizing how impossibly small we are when considered as part of a vast universe. Only on a scale so different than our usual perception can human wonder workers acknowledge their own limits and see the finger of God. But what we do on our little scale of time and space matters, even and especially our seemingly small actions. Indeed, small details are the foundation of our observance as Jews. Our rabbis believe deeply that God is in the little details of action, and small actions matter. Often giving a little of ourself, of our time, or our money is all we're able to do at a certain moment. And that is not just great, but in many ways wondrous. While we should all strive to do and care more than we are currently able to, the reality is that a little can go a long way. Such actions may not seem worthy at the time. You may question why you even bother to smile or care or help or think or carry or listen or call or text. But as you carry out that seemingly small action, you need to know that you are also working on the level of God. You are acting on a small scale, yes, but you need to believe it has impacts beyond what you might imagine. Yes, grand actions can be important too. They're the stuff of heroes, of history books, of the headlines. But it's the little deeds, repeated daily, doing what you can when you can, that make all the difference. In those moments, you too can realize, it's Ba Elohim He. I just acted with the finger of God. Shabbat Shalom.